wanted to talk about, it's very good to talk about the relationship the Buddha has with various people. I mean, we can't get the Buddha. We can't understand him. It's not possible. And he said it himself in quite archaic, well, it's translated into quite archaic English. He said, "Those who by my form did see me, those who followed me by voice, wrong the efforts they engage in. Me those people never see." So he's saying you could meet the Buddha, chat to him, and you wouldn't guess he's a Buddha at all. And in fact, that happens in the Pali Canon quite a lot, and it makes me smile that the Buddha turns up to visit some people, and there's a guardian there, a park keeper, and he says, "Please, go away. There's good people here," you know. And that happens a few times, you know. You cannot see enlightenment. You cannot see spiritual development. And one could immediately think, oh yes, but I know this guru. He may or she may be charismatic. That's not spiritual. They may have a great presence. That's not spiritual. What is spiritual? We don't know. But when the Buddha got enlightened, his first thought was, you can't teach this. It's so unlikely, you know. But with wisdom comes compassion. And so, I won't go into the story now. He makes an effort. And I'm trying to be a little bit gentle here because there are people here for the first time. Yeah? Great. So, he was successful after a while. He met some early companions, and 5 of them, and they all became enlightened. That's fantastic. You know, they worked together, he taught, they got it. And then he taught more people. There were 60 enlightened people. And it sort of spread. Yes, the enlightenment, you know, more people got it. What can I say? And he said, you know, he found the sort of the ultimate goal. You know, enlightenment is the greatest thing that can be achieved. He said it's the greatest bliss. He also said rebirth is destroyed for him. Now, I don't know what you think about rebirth. I mean, when I first came across it, I thought the idea was horrible. I was on my first Buddhist retreat. I said, one life is more than enough, you know. And you're telling me there's millions. Not interested, you know. But you know, I slowly became convinced. The big thing that convinced me was chatting to 3-year-olds. You know, when they've got total recall of a previous life. It's shocking. My flatmate, Moksha Siddha, his daughter, as soon as she could speak, she just wanted to go home. She said, I want to go to my real family. And she knew the name, and he did research, but there were too many people with that name. So the testimony of children is very interesting. It's very, very... I mean, little Lucy, this is years ago, she told me, she said she was in the back of the car, she was a 3-year-old, and she looked out the window and said, oh, look, a Morris Oxford. I had one of those. Now, how do 3-year-olds know the make and the model, you know? So, there we go. We'll leave it. And the Buddha never pushed it. He just took it like there's gravity, there's rebirth. It's not a teaching, you know, it's just there, all right? So, great. Not a big deal. Why don't we have it in Christian countries? Because, who is it? The Roman, who is his name? Justinian I made it anathema in the year 533. If you believed in rebirth, they killed you, you know. And it did provide some real problems for the church because when the great day of the choosing, when God was going to pick all those to come into heaven, all these souls, which body do you come with? You've had hundreds, thousands, you know. So there were difficulties. So out it goes. All right, there we go. All right, good. Great. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so talking about the Buddha, I really enjoy reading about the Buddha these days. I do. And what I have discovered is that he does have a sense of humour. It's quite mild. And we'll come to it, but he loves a bit of irony, and it will come out in this story a little bit later, yeah? But having heroes, it's a funny old business. It does engage the emotions more. I mean, the Nichiren, they just have words on their shrine. I don't know how they do it, yeah? And that's what gets them excited, you know? But yeah, it's just a script. There's no Buddha figure or anything. But I like this. This is maybe not my favourite Buddha. It looks a little bit too much like, what's his name, Cumberbatch. But, sorry. But anyway, sometimes, funnily enough, the Buddha that affected me the most was an old lamp. It was a lamp with a lotus coming out of its head and a light. And that actually appeared in my dreams as a Buddha. It really was a good one, a little Chinese. The Chinese Buddhas are very friendly, very approachable, you know. So there we go. Yeah, and heroes, I mean, a strange little diversion here. When I was a young school teacher, I was about 22, 23, and I coached a football team of these kids, and we did competitions of that. And then I started a girls' team, and that was shocking, you know. The headmaster, girls' football. This is 1977, 1976, you know. And the boys, I loved it. Mr. Toomey, girls, playing football. I say, yeah. They go, oh. And they couldn't conceptualize anything, you know, just, oh. So... But the girls enjoyed it, I enjoyed it, it was great. But just something on boys. What I noticed, because television got very good quality in those days. Suddenly, you know, colour telly arrived and the big screens arrived, and there were good quality pictures. I mean, what you won't know is a little black and white Murphy television like this, and poor old Dad standing with the aerial outside the window trying to get a reception, you know. But television's got good, and suddenly these kids, they could hero worship a footballer, yeah. They really and worship, adore him, and suddenly their footwork was amazing. I was seeing football that these kids were doing that they learned from studying their hero on television, you know? And it was like love was producing learning, you know? It's amazing. But also a funny little thing, I'm going to throw this in, it's not necessary for the talk, but I love it. Mandalas. You've heard of mandalas, have you? Mandalas. So Buddhist mandala, you have a big Buddha figure in the middle, then you have smaller figures around him, and it's all very artistic or whatever. And but the point of a mandala is the important characters in the middle, and the minor figures are around it. Well, if you want to see modern mandalas, real mandalas, you go into a boy's bedroom. This is going to sound crazy. And on the wall will be a poster, let's say they love Barcelona, of Lionel Messi, yeah? And there's this big picture of Lionel Messi on the wall. And then around him in little pictures are his teammates, yeah? It's a mandala. It's a real mandala. And I mean, when you look at medieval art, you've got a huge big Jesus and a huge big Virgin Mary, and all the other saints are tiny. And when you first come across medieval art, you go, that's weird. Why aren't they the same size, you know? But when you look at a boy's football poster, it's right, you know, because our eye can accept it. When you get into medieval art, it works, but let that be. So just that little thing on mandalas, I found it really curious, that we do them, you know, but we don't know it. So there we go. All right. So trying to get to know who the Buddha is. There is so much rubbish on the internet, what the Buddha said. It's unbelievable. The rot, the rubbish that the Buddha... And last year, we had people sending in things they'd found of what the Buddha had said. And I think Kirill's was my favourite, yeah? He found one. And it said, the Buddha said, there are two types of people, and I ignore both of them. It's great, isn't it? But there's just hundreds of them. So you really, if you want to find out who the Buddha is, I mean, this to me is fantastic. It's the life of the Buddha. Sangharakshita recommended this. You can come and look later. It's by Nyanamoli. It's not a fluent read. I've bought it for people and they don't like it. Yeah? But it's for dipping into, and there's some great stories in there, and I love them. And the Pali Canon, how did it come into being? Basically, Buddhism happened 2,500 years ago. And fortunately, the Buddha had this cousin, Ananda, with this amazing memory, and he memorized everything. And he said to the Buddha, when I'm not present, you repeat what I missed. So Ananda got this huge record, and they did have great memories. They were not a literary people. You know, the Buddha didn't know how to read or write. You know, it wasn't done, but you memorized, you know, the whole genealogy of the family. You used your memories. And then 500 years later, King Ashoka said, write it down, you know, because it was all going, dug, 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 dug. And it can change, you know. We call it Chinese whispers in English, Stille Post in Deutsch, yeah. And it just gets worse and worse with every generation. So, and just looking at the life of the Buddha and his teachings, and basically there were 3 books came out of it. They're huge, enormous, these great tomes. There's the life of the Buddha. There's the rules that came into existence when people did things wrong. That's the second one. And the third would be all the teachings, all the philosophy, yeah. And this is the Pali Canon, right? These 3, and I mean, it would fill a bookcase like this, yeah. I've seen pictures of it. I've just got one edition, and it's like of the middle length sayings. So that's the Pali Canon. Can't go into it much more, but that gives you an idea. And you read it, and this good friend of mine, Sagramati, he is such an expert. He said, read it as if you're reading literature. Don't take it as fact. There are bits in it that really work. You know, it's a teaching, it's true. You know, cause and effect, the teachings on that, the ethics. You can see that the Metabhavana works, the stuff that really works. It's like having, you know, sometimes you find a good cookery book and the recipes work, you know. And this is similarly, but some of the stories, you think, is that so? Is that so? And you have to use your judgment. But some of them make me laugh. In this book here, the one I just mentioned, the Buddha is delivering a teaching to a whole gang of them, and he sneezes. Now, when somebody sneezes, what do you say? Roy?
Bless you.
Yes, very good. Or in German?
Gesundheit.
Gesundheit, yes, indeed. That's what we say. And these monks, they go, I mean, is it meaningful?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, it's because it comes from the plague in English.
That's what they say, but today the plague's gone, isn't it? It's a bit nonsense. But anyway, let it be. Yeah, yeah. But the Buddha's giving this teaching, and he sneezes, and the monks go, "Good health, sir," which is exactly the same as Gesundheit, isn't it? Yeah, you know, good health, sir. And the Buddha just stops the teaching. He's been interrupted, and he goes, "Does that work?" And they go, "No, Lord." And he sees what useless speech it is. He said, "This is verboten." He didn't speak German, but he said, he said, "It's not on, you know, that's gone. Don't do that anymore." Anyway, sometime later, we don't know how long. I love this. This makes it feel real to me. Sometimes later, the monks come back and they say, "Lord, Lord." He said, you know, they said, "The people in the village, in the town, they're saying how rude the monks are because when they sneeze, we don't say anything." And the Buddha says, "All right, you can say it." I love that. That works. That probably happened, you know. Who would invent that? And there's another one, yeah? And there's another one, King Pasenadi. I really like King Pasenadi. He has a friendship with the Buddha. It's very clear. The Buddha had a few kings as friends, you know. And Pasenadi one day does all these praises of the Buddha, but I'm just going to pick out one. He says, he's saying how good the community of you know, the Buddha's community is. And he says, "When I'm in court speaking to my ministers, they talk while I'm talking." He says, "Now I have power of life and death over them. You know, I can have them executed." And I say, "Ministers, do not talk while I'm talking." And they keep talking. He says, "But I was watching the Buddha speaking to all his assembly once, and a monk cleared his throat. And the monk next to him stuck his knee in his back and went, 'Quiet, brother, the Lord is speaking.'" he says it is amazing. And I like that. That knee in the back has travelled down 2,500 years. I believe that one, yeah? So you have to pick and choose and just use your imagination. And it doesn't matter too much because some of it is just so true. I'm not going to go into those bits, you know. It's independent of witnesses. It works today, you know. Pratichet samut pada, conditioned co-production. It's a teaching that works. I'm not going into it, yeah. But you read Shakespeare. You look at Polonius gives advice to his son Laertes. It's brilliant advice. It's only a story. It's Hamlet, yeah. But he's saying neither a lender nor a borrower be, you know, dress as well as you can afford. He's giving him all these tips. It works. So even though it's just literature, it's full of truths. That's all I'm saying, yeah? So we can read the Pali Canon like that. Good. All right. That's my introduction, really. So the discourse about Meghiya. Meghiya, the Buddha, he seems to always have a companion. Someone like, they can be a personal assistant, because the Buddha is meeting a lot of people, kings, you know, peasants, everybody. And he usually has a personal assistant, somebody to arrange it. But anyway, this time the Buddha's off on a walk or something. He's staying elsewhere. He's with Meghiya. And I don't want to go through the whole text because the language is a bit strange. But Meghiya one morning, he says, look, I'm going to go into Jantugama for alms. I'm going to go begging this morning. And the Buddha says, do what it is the time for. And off he goes, you know, to beg, takes his bowl, goes round. And he will share this food with the Buddha, no doubt, when he gets back. Yeah, goes from house to house. Comes back. But no, wait, on the way, he sees this mango grove. Oh, India, hot. Yeah, mango grove, maybe some water there, shade. These fruits hanging, not the cannonballs you get in Lidl and Aldi. These are mangoes that, you know. And I remember my friend Virabhadra in India, he said mangoes were so cheap that when you went to buy mangoes, you bought a whole tray and you brought them back from the community. And I'm not going to mention another man who is a friend of mine. He is so mean, he was able to buy one mango. And I don't know if this money is small enough to buy one mango, but he managed to do it. He's so mean, they made him give a talk on generosity at Padmaloka once. I saw that. But he could come home with one mango. Anyway, let it be. But mangoes, you know, just dripping with goodness and sweetness. So poor old Meghiya, he's seen this mango grove. And we do that. You know, you're going out, when you get into Buddhism, you're seeing these old houses. You go, that could be a Buddhist centre, you know. And you're thinking, yeah, 30 years work, no thanks, you know. But you know, you have these lovely fantasies, and he's seen this mango grove. I could get enlightened there. So he comes back to the Buddha, and he says, Reverend Sir, you know, I dressed this morning, I went begging, I saw this wonderful mango grove. He says, surely, for a son of good family, he calls himself, who needs to strive, this is a good place for the striving, for gaining enlightenment, you know? And the Buddha says, no. He says, stay with me, yeah, until another monk comes. You know, then you can go. And this gave me a problem for years. I thought, is the Buddha a bit of a wuss? You know, why does he have to have a companion? You know, then as you read more and more of the text, you realize that they always travel in twos. You know, Sariputra would go with somebody else. They always go in twos, which is very good sense because India is so dangerous. There's no phone masts, there's no telephones. You know, if you twist your ankle, you're on your own, you're probably dead. You know, you'll die under the sun. Snake bites, I looked it up a few years back, snake bites in India, and that year there were, I think it was 46,000 deaths from snake bite in India. 46,000. This is just a few years back. Yeah. Australia has the really poisonous snakes. How many die in Australia? I'll tell you, 12. Yeah? They got hospitals, they got anti-venoms, you know. But poor old India. And when I was in India, you can see the dead snakes where people have whacked them. And the snakes are not attacking. They're trying to hide. But, you know, you open a cupboard door, you know, they're frightened and you die. Yeah. Funnily enough, I then found this text by the Buddha. This is bizarre. And it's like a metabhavana for snakes. And he's got 4 different families of snakes, and you wish all the different families of snakes well. Okay, it may not work that well, but it develops your imagination, and you know that this sort of snake hides in your shoe. This sort of snake hides in the cupboard. This in the long grass. So by doing that metabhavana, you're probably more aware of snakes. Anyway, I did find it amazing. So there we go. But, I'm losing my point now. God, that was too exciting. But India is dangerous. You know, you could die of sunstroke. There are bandits. If there's 2 of you, they could think one might run off and escape and come back with the king's men, which is what happens, you know. So you always go into... So the Buddha is not a wuss. Also, one day somebody unleashes a bull elephant that's crazy to kill the Buddha. And this tusker comes charging down. And the Buddha, we did the meditation last week, just does the metabhavana. Vroom. And this huge mad elephant is just tamed immediately. And the text says, Tusker met Tusker, you know. And so the Buddha, you know, he's tough enough. He has no fear. That is a Buddha. It doesn't exist. So there we go. So just that. But here we have the Buddha saying, stay, you know. And poor old Meghiya, he goes on. And he starts this whole blinking emotional blackmail. He's going, it's all right for you. You've done it. I haven't. It's my turn now. And the Buddha is saying, stay. Yes, yeah. And 3 times he asks him, yeah. And the Buddha says no. And then suddenly, now the English, I don't know Pali, but I've got the English translation, I've got the German translation, and the English translation is so weak, it's awful, yeah. Because Meghiya suddenly says, Lord, I want to meditate. And Buddha goes, what can one say with such language? Do what it is the time for. The German one is much better, yeah? He says, I'll just give you the little bit in German. He says, so möchte ich mich zu jenem Mangoheim begeben, zum geistiger Kampfer. Geistiger Kampfer. The spiritual, the mental fight, the battle. Now that's language. Yeah, no, I want to meditate, you know. Yeah, I want that geistigen Kampfer. And then it makes sense. Then the text makes sense when the Buddha says, oh, what can one say against such words? Do what it is the time for. Off you go. Yeah? And I love it. And I think this is absolute irony on the Buddha's part. What can one say against such language? This is the Buddha. He got enlightened without any help. He found the path to the transcendental without being helped by anybody on the transcendental path. He did it. The highest achievement on the planet, yeah? Probably in history, yeah? And Meghiya won't follow his advice, you know? Yeah? Yeah, I know better, yeah? And so there we go. But, yeah. So, and I'm sure the Buddha knows exactly what's going to happen. So off goes old Meghiya, you know, gets down there, down to the mango grove, and he's meditating away. And before he knows it, his mind, I've lost the place, so I just remember, he starts getting desire for sensual experiences. Could be sex, could be food, we don't know, yeah? When you've got a new girlfriend or a boyfriend, it's usually sex, yeah? But when you work in a restaurant, you're eating everything, as I did, yeah? But, desire for sensual pleasure, and he gets ill will and even cruelty, yeah? And he just does it. It's a nightmare, yeah? So he's there on his own, in his own nightmare, and it's lovely. He just comes back to the Buddha and sits next to him. And what I really like is the Buddha doesn't say, told you so. It's lovely, isn't it? He doesn't say, you should have listened. He doesn't do any of that, yeah? He just goes straight into a teaching. He said, for he whose freedom of mind is not fully mature, Meghiya, there are 5 things that lead to maturity. What 5? What 5? He said, here, Meghiya, a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade. For he whose freedom of mind is not fully mature, Meghiya, this is the first thing that leads to maturity. Find a spiritual community if you can. And this is a spiritual community. It's not so strict. You know, on Saturdays it's a community. Yeah, okay, temporary, but, you know, there's links. And where's got my hanky? Sorry. There it is. And I remember this. I remember this. There was me, a total beginner. And one night I popped into the centre, and it was Doe Phillips. She was a real artist, yeah? Made sculptures, beautiful stuff. There's a ship called the Cutty Sark. It was the fastest sailing vessel in the world in its time. She used to bring home bits of the Cutty Sark and gold leaf them, you know. She was working on the Cutty Sark, and she used to bring bits home, yeah. So she was a real artist. There was Andy, her boyfriend, and Padmaraja, our chairman. And you could take paintings out of the local library and borrow them for a month in those days, yeah? And they brought home a painting, and it was standing there, and the 3 of them were looking at it, and I'm just quietly in the back, you know, and they're just talking about this painting. Now, I did 3 years art at college, yeah? My art lecturers, I don't think they had a clue as to why they did art, or they didn't tell me, you know. I said, why paint? Why do this? I could, you know, 3 years of confusion, I got nothing. I came up with my own definition that a work of art has an effect. It's not very good, is it? I mean, a white canvas has an effect, yeah? So I didn't have a definition until I came to Buddhism, then I found one. But these 3 people were just talking about art. Now, I've just got to lay out this experience. You know about crying, yeah? We cry. Do you know the word sobbing, to sob? It's much more than crying. The whole body goes, wallop, what, you sob, yeah? And I'm listening to these 3 people talking about art, and suddenly a single sob started in me from way, way down. And it went, I was going, and I went, bah! And somebody said, it's all right, John, it's okay. And I was home. I was home. And so many people have this experience of finding the Dharma, and it's like coming home. They say that, you know. I'm moved now, sorry. But, you know, finding your people after all these years. So this is what he's saying. The Buddha is saying, you need good friends, Meghiya, yeah? You need good friends. He gives him 5 things. He says, you need to be virtuous. You need to follow ethics. You know, just being truthful makes the life simpler, makes your mind clearer, you know, not stealing, not thinking, you know, it makes life simpler and clearer. You're building an ethical basis for your meditation. He says, you need suitable talk. Now, I love the talk. Because these old Buddhists, they were alive before the war. They'd gone through World War II, and their humour was so different, and it really it was totally different. And there was just wisdom and experience there. They made me laugh. Old jokes, yeah? Yeah. I mean, today we don't have that so much, but we do have study groups where you can pick up the experience of others. And that was it. They can share their life experience, and it's fun. It's easy. It's enjoyable. You're getting an education, and it's not hurting, you know? It's just nice to be with them. So I do remember that, yeah. I remember one of my first visits, I offered to cook a meal for them, and I had this recipe, and it was chili sin carne, you know, meat without, spice without meat. And I got instead of teaspoons, I put in dessert spoons of all the spices, and I blew their heads off, and they're all so polite. Tablespoon of chili, tablespoon of coriander. Anyway, there you go, got it wrong. But I remember that. But they were so kind. But just that gentleness of these older men, and they were so kind to me, yeah? Good. So the talk is good, the talk is helpful. And also, this is gold, they could tell you stories about our teacher that I would never have heard. You know, there were bits of old history there. I can't go into many of them, but they also told me about a man called Zengo who I just missed. And he became a guest in this community, a young Zen Buddhist who was the most amazing meditator. And they said even the old ladies at the back of the room opening their boiled sweets before meditation, they went into superconscious states. Yeah, and he became a bit of a myth. One day, Ratnapani told me he went to bow to the shrine and just got stuck in bliss for ages. And the whole room's waiting. What we did earlier, but, you know, the guru is like, you know, he went, oh, too much bliss. You know, he came out, said that. And another day, they were on retreat, and there was a pneumatic drill outside the window, you know, and it was impossible. Boom, 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 the whole house shaking, yeah, in the street outside. And Zengo, take no notice, yeah? Boom, boom, boom. And suddenly, huge explosion, blue flash and silence. And everybody went, boom. They thought he'd done it, you know, who knows? But so these stories, they come in, and I'm not going to go into the Sangharakshita stories, but, you know, it's for free, yeah? He says, that's three of them. Then he says you develop energy, yeah? Energy for the right things, you know, and you're encouraged to find energy. The place has energy. This class has energy. How are we doing? Yeah. Good. He said, you know, doing all this, maturity will come. And the last one, wisdom. You will become wise in this environment, yeah? And this is quite curious, this gets subtle. He says, you will understand the arising and falling of things. This ordinary little sentence is absolutely profound. Yeah? That basically, we live in a world of objects. That's a normal human experience. It's not just humans, it's animals. You know, you put down a bowl of dog food, an old rover, you know. They're objects. We live in a world of objects. We even turn lovers into objects. Yeah? I want you, I must have you, you are mine, you know. And we live in this whole world. We even turn things like love into an object. Yeah? We think we can have, even the Beatles sang, you know, money can't buy me love, didn't they? You know. But everything is process. Everything is process. This is the teaching. Everything is rising and falling. And our mind goes, no, it's fixed. It's all right. You know, that's my girlfriend. Yeah, boom. Yeah, she's mine. Who's she talking to over there? Yeah. But, yeah. But we live in this rigid world of objects. It's very crude software. It's 3.11, you know. It's not even Windows 10 or 11, you know, it's crap, yeah? And we're living in this very simple, wrong world. That very simple world was very, very good once upon a time. It allowed us to run away from tigers and eat rabbits, yeah? Great. But now, for the subtle life, it doesn't work. Everything is process. And this is what the Buddha is saying. You see the arising of things and their cessation, yeah? Friends come into existence and they disappear. Yeah, we have a lovely mug. Oh, I bought this, you know, where'd you get that, you know? And then it's broken, yeah? It came, it went. That mug was once clay from under the ground, you know, torn in Deutsch, yeah? It was fired, it's a mug. It's in the middle of its life story. It will be in the dustbin in the moor soon, yeah? And gone, yeah? So, so everything is process. And I once made a joke, and it worked quite well for people. I said, when you buy a vase, you go into a shop, you get a nice, really good one, you know, sort of crystal, you know, it's 25, 30 euros, yeah? The shopkeeper should say to you, by the way, it comes with its own breakage. This will smash. They all do. Yeah? And then one day, there's your lovely vase on the mantelpiece, the cat tries to squeeze behind, crash, and we're upset and disappointed. The vase did what all vases do. It's their nature, yeah? Right, so there we go. So this is, and seeing the arising and falling of things, and when you see the arising and falling of things, attachment is reduced. Craving is reduced. And as the Buddha said, craving is the cause of all suffering. Yeah? That's where the Buddha works. The Buddha doesn't work on suffering. You know, the Buddha says suffering exists because underneath it there's craving, yeah? And he works on the craving, you know? He's got the Eightfold Path, 8 attacks on craving, yeah? And undermines it that way. Good. All right. So, almost there then. So we've had these 5 ways, and then he says, when you really have friendship, it will make these stages all so much easier. Yeah? You'll see, you know, well, he's already sort of said it. I don't know why he repeats it, but it'll be just much easier because you're yeah, that's what I was going to say. Very often an insight can arise in a community. It's much easier if there's a gang of you working on an insight. That's why we have friendships, yeah? And you do, with really good friends, telepathy becomes normal. I mean, my girlfriend the other week, we're in a cafe, it's a restaurant with her cousin, her sister, the nephew, and it's going all right. And I'm thinking, we should go to Kerner Park. I can pop home, get some sparkling water and some coffee. And she turns around, we should go to Kerner Park. I went, yeah. We've both done it at the same time, you know. And why Kerner Park? But anyway, yeah. But with really good friends, you overlap and insights come more easily. So that's it, really. Then the Buddha does just, right at the very end of this text, he throws in a number of meditations. I'll just mention them and then we're done, quite early. He says, there's a meditation we don't do. The first one is meditating on the unattractive. Yeah, and this is to stop monks craving after cream buns and things like that, you know. They sort of reflect on the next stage of the cream bun when it's all chewed up, you know, and all right. We don't do that one. We do something called the 6 element practice, which is like just looking at the impermanence of things. We do that one instead. But the others are all ours, yeah? He says, and that one will reduce passions. He says, the metta bhavana, which we did last week and next week, will remove ill will. That's very, very good. The mindfulness of breathing, this one surprised me, will cut off thoughts. I thought, who wants their thoughts cut off? And then I thought, when you're in meditation, it would be lovely to be sitting there in this completely peaceful environment, just loving the peace of it, without thinking of shopping in Aldi after the class, you know? So the mindfulness of breathing will stop the thoughts, yeah? Great. Cutting off thoughts, he says. If we reflect on impermanence, then the whole thought of I am, this conceit of I am, will be reduced. And a sort of a, it sounds awful, but there'll be an experience of sort of non-self. I might have had it once, yeah? I thought it was caused by a virus. I don't know. But the experience was like somebody turned off the bloody radio. You know when the builders are next door and they got WDR 1 on, it's all day long. And no, I just said to you, we've had this bloody bird across the road for 3 years. This bird, it's so loud, none of the other birds can get in. And it's been going for 3 years, doing every bird song there is. It might be electronic, might not be a real bird. And 2 months ago, it stopped. And I hope it's dead. Sorry. Oh! And it's been reborn as an albatross or something like that, and it's miles away, yeah? It's a seagull. But the peace, and today I heard the crows come back, and I love crows. And I thought, yes, back to normal. So, all right. Well, how did I get onto that? But sorry, but just this no self experience happened. That's what it was, and it was like the radio being turned off, and just this peace, you know. Lovely. And he says, if you really can get rid of that conceit of I am, he said, in this very life, you reach emancipation, enlightenment, the highest bliss. That's it. Finished 10 minutes early. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Good.